Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 1 of my Pyanodons playthrough. In this episode, we are going to start our factory with our inventory empty and start automating mining. Enjoy! So the first step to any factory is automating mining so we don't have to mine it by hand, and that is done in the burner mining drill. We'll talk about this drill in a little bit, but for now we know that we need some raw resources of essentially 3 copper plates and 9 iron plates. And most of the resources come from the 3 small parts that are in there, and we'll talk about those later. But for now we can go over to the ores here to see that in order to make a copper plate and an iron plate, we need 8 of the ore. So instead of a 1-to-1 ratio, it is an 8-to-1 ratio. And that gives you an idea of what's to come with Pi. But don't worry, you'll get research that will reverse this, so instead of many ore into 1 plate, it'll become 1 ore into many plates. But we need to multiply the plates by 8 in order to get what we need here, which means 72, but how about let's just do 80 iron and 24 copper. Our iron is over here, butted up against the native flora. But luckily they don't use the same type of miners, so this isn't that big a deal. Let's put our iron onto Yarm, and we don't need to have all of the sites on here, so we can get rid of the ore summary lines here, which should get rid of it. I only care about the individual patches, and we don't need to leave this displayed, we can just hide it, but we have about 800,000 iron ore here. So it's time to start digging. And I like to put some of our initial resources on the quick bar here, just so when we are handcrafting things, I can see how many items we have in our inventory, rather than having to open the menu first. 79 and 80. So normally I would go looking for some rocks, because we do need to smelt this in something. And we do have a few. Might as well grab them. And notice that besides the stone and coal that we normally get, it also has another indicator there. And that is moss. I like to turn that off so we don't see all the unresearched stuff. And we go to moss here. Right now we don't need it for anything, but we will later. But that tooltip kind of implies you get 1 moss, but you actually don't. That there's a 10% chance of getting a moss from basically every rock that you break. And that's how that math works. And we'll take it. Put the stone there. Put the coal there. And let's chop up this dry tree here to get our log. And in Pi, wood starts as logs and then you can break them down into wood. But I imagine this is going to be the rare resource on this planet, are these logs. So we have to be very careful about not needlessly making things out of wood. Okay, we've got everything we need. Making a stone furnace just requires the 5 stone. I got rid of the Placeable Mods UI button. So Control-Shift-P brings it up, and there we go. So we don't need to open our menu, it's just right there. And we can put it anywhere for now. Of course we can move it with picker dollies, so. And we have our red indicator there, because it's basically non-functional. In goes the iron, in goes the coal. And there it goes. So you'll note that coal here has a fuel value of 3, not 4. So raw coal in Pi is worse than regular coal. And you see the spent result is ash. And we have some here. And luckily it stacks in 1,000, but the way Pi works is anything that you can burn creates an ash. So every 1 item of anything creates 1 item of ash. And dealing with ash is something that you need to work with. Luckily it makes the iron plates pretty fast. It's going through the ore rather rapidly because it's using them 8 at a time. But one important thing to note about ash is that if you burn something that isn't a coal product or its biomass as listed here, it actually doesn't create ash. So you see this calls it burnable fuel, makes ash. And biomass doesn't make ash, but of course our logs are super valuable, so we wouldn't want to waste them like that. And let's put the iron plate somewhere, doesn't matter. But you see that it goes through the raw coal pretty fast. That in order to make our 10 plates, we basically needed about 7 pieces of coal, so it's quite a lot. And by doing that, we completed the steam power research, and that unlocks pipes and undergrounds, the offshore, the boiler and the steam engine, surprisingly enough the circuit network already, as well as the small electric pole and air core inductors. And we'll get into all that stuff later, but the thing I'm worried about are these electric poles. Every single pole we need to build is going to take a log. So there better be a forest somewhere. That's gonna be bad, but we'll deal with it as long as we can here. So now we need 24 pieces of copper. So we'll put the copper on the list, and yes, it's a small patch, at least it's a physically small patch, but the density is okay at 160,000. You don't need that much copper in the beginning. Now that I think about it, we are going to need to find an actual tree, because trees drop a rare resource as well. However, those little logs we were chopping over did not. So there better be a tree somewhere. But we're going to need to have some coal here and no rocks to chop. So look how it's 32 million coal. Like, that's probably a lot more coal than you were expecting. So don't be afraid of using coal in the beginning here. They give you so much of it. And also, it has a 50% mining time, so you can mine coal very quickly. So there's all the things, but we want another stone furnace. Let's just put it somewhere. In goes the copper. In goes the coal. And there we go. And the only chests we have right now are the wooden chests, so I really don't want to use a log to make a wooden chest. But there we go. So we'll make the burner miner drill. And there it goes, making all the things. Might as well get some more coal while we're here. And achievement unlocked for making small parts. So one thing you're going to find out here is that the burner miners in Pi are very, very resource hungry. So let's plop it down and take a look at it. So you'll notice that the burner miner drill in Pi actually will mine one tile wider than its size. So they're a little more convenient in that sense. And we're just going to move them later, so it doesn't really matter where we put it. So we'll just plop it somewhere, move the furnace to be next to it, and if you see here, it has a fuel consumption of 500 kilowatts. Like, it goes through fuel very fast, and considering that these only have 3 megajoules, it basically means you're only going to get about 5 minutes off of an entire stack of coal, so hand inserting doesn't work for very long. You can see this coal is quickly running out too. But we just need more coal. Normally I would chop up a bunch of rocks and have some coal, but instead we're going to have to grab some by hand here. And out of fuel already. But there it goes. In the meantime, we might as well get more copper for another drill. Another 24 pieces. And guess what? We're going to need more coal again. And let's start moving this stuff around a little bit to make a little bit more sense. So I probably want to put a drill on the coal before putting it on the copper, because we actually need way more coal than we do copper. But I don't want to spend the one log to make a chest. So if you just control click on that, you will get the ash out of it too. And that's fine. It stacks in units of 1,000, so once it fills up, that'll be it. And might as well put the spare parts on there just so we have an idea of how many we have. But now we have a decent amount of plates here. So we'll make a burner drill, and because I don't want to spend the one log on a box, let's make a second burner drill so they can use themselves as chests. In it goes, and more coal. So there we go. Make the second drill, put the coal that we have in here. Grab 2 pieces of coal, put the drills into each other, and there we go. You see that they actually mine very quickly, so that'll be incredibly useful. Just like that, we have tons of coal. Okay, we need a little bit more copper now, so we can drill the copper. And in it goes. And put that in there. Looking good. Actually have a decent amount of resources in there now. And you'll note that the drill is faster than the stone furnace. And if we select the 2, you can see that it's a 4:5 ratio. And we're done with automation research because of the 10 plates. So we've got some more machines. The path we need to follow to make the first pack, the automation science pack, starts at an empty planter box. And it does require wood, but at least it's wood and not logs. But it's wood, stone bricks, and iron plates, so basically all of the beginning resources to make that empty planter box. And then we fill the planter box with ash and soil. And then after that, we take 2 boxes, as well as some parts and lots of flora, to make the automation science pack. And we've got some machines here. Like right out the gate, we're going to have a bunch of pie machines. The flora collector is the miner that will mine the flora, and it runs on electricity. And there's a special lab for pie that, funnily enough, takes transport belts and small parts. But you'll notice that small parts is kind of like the dump item in pie, at least in the beginning, where pretty much every machine always needs small parts. Another thing that has that same effect are steam engines as well. And also we have the soil extractor here, which of course takes a lot of resources, and you might notice that right out of the gate, we have machines that take more than 100 plates to make, and this one takes more than 200. So production speed is important, but also you don't want to go nuts. But the soil extractor kind of does what you would expect. It extracts soil from basically the ground. And there's a lot of things in pie that make resources from nothing, and soil's one of them. I mean, you have to put water in, but whatever. And also the wood processing unit, which processes wood. It'll take the logs and turn them into the wood pieces that we need. So that will allow us to automate a lot of that. And that's the only thing we get for free. Beyond this, we need to actually research stuff. And just like that, we've got a ton of coal. Might as well throw it all in there. One more drill. Just plop it in there. Put in the coal, and now we will make a bunch of copper. So we still have to drag coal around, but at least we don't have to mine things by hand anymore. And now we probably want to increase the output of our iron here. And how much do we want to increase it? Kind of depends on the build we're doing. And in order to save time, I'm not going to show too many builds in Hellmod, at least the making of the build. I'll just talk about it after I've made it and save the actual builds in Hellmod for special situations. And here's our build, where basically 1.88 raw coal goes in, and of course 1.88 ash comes out, and we'll get 0.94 plates. But we wanted to do this to find out the exact numbers, that essentially we're going to need 8 burner miner drills and 10 furnaces, which is the ratio that we were expecting to see. But the main limiting factor here is actually the iron, because we're going to have 2 inputs, coal and iron, and 2 outputs, ash and iron plates. So we don't have long-handed inserters, so 1 belt on one side and 1 belt on the other means the most any one of these can be is 7.5, so thus that's why it's limited to that. But nonetheless, we have a build here. Get rid of beacons there, but obviously it's very simple, so we don't really need to worry about it. But we want to build up a total of 8 miners here, because we want to have all of the resources ready before we actually build the thing, because we might regret moving the miners around. Very quickly, we're going to find ourselves running out of stone, so we're probably going to have to mine that by hand. Oh, there's 3 more. Seems like Factorio's hiccuping briefly, and I'm not sure why. Like right there. Shouldn't be doing that. Alright, I'm back. I disabled the adaptive sync on my monitor. You wouldn't think that would make a difference, but it seems to. Factorio's a weird game. The settings that make for smooth Factorio aren't necessarily the same settings for any other game to make that game smooth. Especially if you're recording the videos and putting them on YouTube. But this is our life now. Picking up coal, moving items around, and building drills. And actually, just like that, we've basically built them all. So we're going to need some extra stone. And let's add this to the list. Stone is handled differently in Pi. Every time we mine, be it by hand or by drill, we're going to get 1 stone and 1 kerogen. Well, since we need 20, I guess I'll just mine 20 here, because I don't know when we'll find the next rock somewhere. And kerogen is basically a junk fuel right now, somewhere between wood and oil. So the fuel value is 2, so even less than the 3 of raw coal. And of course you still get the ash when you burn it, but right now it's a byproduct that we have nothing to do with, and I guess we got more items we can just kind of throw here to follow. But since you have nothing to do with it, the best thing to do is to just burn it. And right now it's not too practical, but when we have belts, we'll be able to send it down the pipe of all our machines and not worry about it anymore. So there we go. We've got our machines, and now we need to do the build. And there's 2 halves of this. The drill part and the furnace part. So let's do the drill part first, all the while grabbing more and more coal. And we're actually doing pretty good on copper now, so we don't really need to worry about it. And I guess I'll put this all in the top half here. So that keeps working. But we're about to start needing some transport belts and some inserters. And we'll deal with how we make all those later. But now we need a build for mining ore, and it's not quite as simple as just put ore on a belt, because we're going to have 2 inputs and 2 outputs. So I'm going to put this basically right there, and it'll be a ghost for now. And the resources will go that way. And then we'll have an inserter here, taking out of the machine, and we get access to filters immediately, even on these inserters. And I guess it's important to bring up the Pi codex now. And there's lots of stuff it tells you. But we can go to inserters here, and this is actually not a burner inserter, it is a mechanical inserter. So it moves for free, and it does come with a filter slot. And that's important because we're going to be using these for several dozen hours. So not having to put fuel in every single one of them is kind of important. But you'll find the most common filters that you use is either a whitelist or a blacklist of ash. And because it wasn't running, we didn't have our quick bar here for quickly picking out the filter that we wanted, but it's either going to be a whitelist or blacklist of ash. And when you do that, it allows you to like copy paste recipes pretty easily. And the way we're going to do this is have 1 input and 1 output on each belt. So don't do like the Factorio thing of 2 inputs on one belt and 2 outputs on the other belt. No, no, no. 1 input and 1 output. And since this one is going to put the ore on the near side, then the far side is going to be the output. And we need one on the other side. This one's just going to pick up coal, and it doesn't care which side of the belt it's on. In fact, you could be on both sides. And then there we go. So our build is going to require 8 of these. There's definitely builds you can do that mine the entire patch, because right now the range of the drill only goes to here, so it's not picking up from this belt or this belt. And there's builds you can do that don't have that problem, but they're less dense. When you do it this way, they're very dense. So we have a high mining output. And you know, you'll be left with a couple strips of ore, but afterwards you can just, you know, move the miners around. But we need to build a bunch of belts now. We definitely want to get this thing completely functional before we move the drills. But I like this because it's fairly dense and we are limited by how big this patch is, and we can only put so many miners on it, so I would rather move the miners around than have it be slower. And very quickly all of our resources are going to disappear here. Since we're going to be doing a lot of building things by hand, you learn the best order to build things so you have the least amount of clicking. By the way, we know this build is going to basically need 2 raw coal a second, and these will produce 3.5 after they consume their own coal. So they're more than enough. It just feels like a lot because we are manually picking them all up here. And I guess I'll throw the kerogen just in that one to make it go away. You can see like how terrible of a fuel it is, like it just goes through it so fast. And now we're going to need 16 inserters, basically. Yeah, it seems smoother. I haven't been staring at the UPS, but it seems like it's not hiccuping like it was before. It's not much. I know some people notice them. I certainly do. And I would rather it not hiccup if it could avoid it. So if we place the transport belts first, it means we can just drag these down and not have to worry about it. So it's a little bit less clicking. But of course, we still have to put all those in. Of course, we're going to need a belt to come out here. Now, normally I would just use a chest, but I really don't want to use that wood. I'm going to make a chest. So if we come over here to the alien life, there's not much life in here yet, but it takes 4 logs to make 20 wood. In other words, 5 wood out of 1 log. So by making this, we're going to have to break 4 of the wood logs apart, unfortunately, to get us our wood. And wood does have a fuel value of 2, so it's basically the same as kerogen. However, because 5 wood comes out of a log, if you are actually going to burn wood, you would want to process them into wood first, just so you get more energy. But I wanted to do that because we're going to have a chest here, and because of the rates, we're actually going to need 3 inserters. And I actually don't care about keeping it on one side of the belt or the other. So I'm just going to do this for now. And actually, we need to automate making stone too, but I'm really hoping we're just going to find some somewhere. So there we go. Now we've got more. And there's going to be most of our builds, but let's do the other half first so we can just have it all together. And we're going to need 9.4 furnaces, and because we might be inserter limited, this is the kind of thing we'd want to check on, that the inserters will work at a speed of 0.77. So 7.5 divided by 0.77 tells us we need almost 10, but not quite. So if they were any slower, we would actually need to have more furnaces than necessary just so there were enough inserters to move things. But right now that doesn't matter. So the design of the furnace aspect of this will be, you know, 2 belts, 1 belt going in, 1 going out, and the exact place we put things is important, and they don't need to have filters. And then the outputs on the front, and they do need filters. So we know ash is already going to be right here, so we'll do that. And then we need to have a filter here and say blacklist of ash, and they fit the same profile, so you can jam a bunch in here if you need to. We don't want to put them right here in case they get in the way, but also we don't want to build an unnecessary amount of belts. So how about like right there, and we need 10. So there we go. That's a lot of inserters. Inserters in Pi are actually kind of expensive, or at least the mechanical ones, where it's 10 plates, whereas the burner drill itself is not much more. So it's kind of funny that that's how it works. And you wish you could drag these, but you can't, because if we do, it'll be facing the wrong way. But at least the filter from the ghost is still applied. And very quickly, this output is feeling insufficient. But we really don't want to be hand inserting things all of the time, so we definitely want to get this done. We already have over 2,000 ash. So that shows you how quickly it builds up. Okay, this is mostly good. We do need to switch this to one side, which we should do after the miners here. And generally you always want things to be on the inside. Let's cut that one out. And there we go. That should be everything we need. So we'll pick up everything. Put them all in there. And you can see also just how quickly your inventory fills up with all this junk. You have to be careful. But in it goes, and we'll see how this works. I believe if we don't have the filters on these, they might actually pick up a little bit of ore out of the miner. I'm not sure if it works that way, but it's better safe than sorry. And we already have a bunch of iron ore, so we can just put it in these and connect them. And then we just put the coal back here, and that'll be how that works. Of course, this is only pseudo-automated because we still need to put the coal here. So we'll need a long belt to bring the coal up, but that gives you an idea of what it looks like, where we have our 2 outputs here. And the reason why we did that is so we can use underground belts to pull off one resource, the one we want. In this case, it's going to be the ash and the plates, and stop the coal and the iron right there. I don't want to build the undergrounds right now because they're really expensive, but we don't really need to because these things hold a ton of ash and also a ton of plates. But this will be what the final build actually looks like. It's mostly automatic, but we do need to get the coal up here. And it's gonna be a little rough because it's going to be a lot of belts. Because basically I kind of want to walk around the map looking for wood, because we're gonna need it pretty soon here. So if we don't find any, we're gonna be in big trouble. So how are we gonna want to get fuel in here? Well, it's totally going to be in the way of this patch, but we also don't need to mine the flora very quickly. So it's actually fine to basically just have a belt going straight through. Just far enough away where it's not interfering with that patch. And we'll just come straight down here because we know we're going to need the stone too. In this case, we probably do want to fill up the belt completely. And we do care about maxing out this patch. So we would want to put them in such a way where we'd get a lot of miners. We don't want to pick up the coal from this center belt. If we do, it'll have little holes and it won't be fully compressed. So we actually want to have a separate fuel belt on the outside fueling these things. At least it's a little more automated than before. Just come through here and now we have tons of plates. And just ran out of coal. Definitely moving the coal around is the most annoying thing we're doing right now. So that would be great if we didn't have to anymore. We're going to have a belt going there, and we're probably going to want like 2 inserters for this. Since the ash is going to go on the outside, it means that we have to insert on this side. So we'll just have an inserter there. A lot of inserters doing belt stuff like this because we don't have any splitters. And I'll just leave the belt here even though it could connect because this is probably going to feed other things as well. So I'll just leave that there. And it looks like we are actually running a little low on copper now. Not by a lot, but we are. So we'll do the tried and true method of whenever something isn't fast enough, double its speed. So one there, fill it all up with coal, and now we have more copper. Okay, I believe we have enough here for this to work, and that 2 inserters will be enough. Yeah, 1 inserter would, but it might kind of hiccup, so let's just do 2. So we have to pick all these up, and they're probably gonna leave stuff on the ground, right? Yep. So I want to pick that up, so that's not a problem. So we'll start dumping resources in, and you'll see how this works here. A lot of early Pi are these very strange logistical challenges that you just don't run into with other mods. But there we go, it's starting to fill up, and eventually it will equalize, but now we have automatic coal delivery there. Although we'll still need to send it there as well. It's just not that important right now because the main thing we need is to get it up here to iron. And we are actually building up quite a bit of iron now. 287 plates. And things just ran out, but also resources just got here. So we are going to want to have inserters to put things on the correct side of the belt. And we don't know if this belt's going somewhere else, so we'll just kind of do it like this. And back to our build, we need 1.88 or about 3 inserters. And that's kind of why it is important to calculate this stuff. Of course, we'll need to get the kerogen in here too, and that will basically pollute the fuel belt by making the inserters not fast enough, but that's okay. We're not going to be mining stone for the kerogen, so it'll just have to be a cancer inside our system until it's burned away. So it is what it is. But there we go. Now we don't need this anymore. And that's automatic iron. Okay then. Well, before I do anything else, I really do want to explore the map a little bit. Of course, we just saw what it looked like before, but I really want to find some trees. There's got to be some somewhere. These better be trees. Like single trees. But we need some. Because every science pack is going to take 2 planter boxes, and that's 4 wood, so essentially almost an entire tree is going to go to every research pack. And here's our pool. You notice the floating seaweeds that are in there along with the fish. We'll get to that eventually. It's like, alright, well, we got rocks. There's actually a lot of rocks here. Do they not appear on the map? Huh, I guess not. I figured rocks would appear here. Well, let's start mining for a little bit. I mean, they are a fast way of getting stone, but I wanted to get a moss, and it looks like we already have one. How much stone? I don't know. It's not like we need very much. Let's just go with this one. So you notice we picked up a moss. See how it's strangely talking about speed and pollution almost as if it's a module? Well, it is a module. A module we can't do anything with right now. Basically, don't throw them away, especially if you're on a map like this that's super sparse. You cannot afford to get rid of them. And we have dry trees, I'll take them. So there is something here. It is a dry tree. So that is what they look like. Wow. I mean, dry trees are terrible, but we need an actual tree. We need sap. And those come from actual trees, not these dry trees. I mean, at least in the short term, we have wood, but it's not going to cut it. I mean, we're getting wood very slowly. As a comparison, I'm pretty sure regular trees drop like 2 to 4 wood, something like that, like a lot. So these dry trees barely count for anything. They are not an actual source of wood that you should rely on, but that's all we have out here. Alright, we've got some lead ore over there. Not that we're searching for mineable patches right now. How many pieces of wood? Until I get tired of searching for them, I suppose. This is probably the most wood-sparse map I think I've ever spawned on before. I've had ice maps before, but maybe there was just something different about the settings where there were actual, like, snow-covered trees. This is like ice wasteland. Oh, this is about as far as I feel like walking out here, especially with the slow walking speed of the snow. If push comes to shove and we just have to spawn some trees to get the sap out of them, then so be it. But we do have a stack of logs, so at least for a little while, we at least could make some power poles and chests. Of course, they run out very quickly. Wow, that is the most sparse map. There's nothing here. It almost seems like there's something wrong with the map gen, but I think that's just how it turned out. Well, since we are automating resources pretty reliably now, I can pick up the resources out of the ship and probably just clear out the pieces. We'll leave the wreck of the ship here for now as a monument to us being marooned on this ice wasteland. So let's make some undergrounds. I guess put the chest there to show basically how this works. That we want to stop the resource that we don't want and let the resources we do want to continue. And if you need to stop them, you just have the resource you want to stop close to where the underground is. So if it faces this way, you would want to place it like that to stop the iron. But if you wanted it to go the other direction, you can stop the iron by putting it here and then there. And it would also work. It looks a little weird because this section isn't being used. And in fact, you probably could just get rid of it. That's probably the most efficient way, but it looks kind of cursed because it's just an underground belt sitting by itself. So I don't know. But it would take less space to go this way, so let's do that. We probably don't want to put these on one belt because then we're just going to have to split them again later when they inevitably go somewhere else. It's not here. But we're going to need some chests to store the ash. We have 3 inserters going in, which means we're going to need to have 3 inserters going out. And for now, let's have 1 stack of each. And we don't have to do this right now, but by getting started on it, you'll kind of see what we're planning with this build. That we put an input of coal, and then we have an output of ash that we'll have to do something with when we have the technology to do so. But of course, we're going to have a minibus somewhere where we want the plates to go. So that is a pretty compact way of doing things. So if we wanted more, we can do a second one. And we don't want to combine it on that belt, so it would have to be a separate one, like right here. And there would be those 2 spaces in the middle. However, we could flip this and have them share the same fuel belt, because they're not putting anything on the fuel belt, and then just split the fuel belt when we get to here. But that is how that works. It's kind of an expensive way of splitting things, but right now we don't really have an option. And there it goes. And that'll eventually clear out all the ash, so those machines will never clog up because of ash. And eventually we'll be able to send the ash somewhere to get handled. And there's no point in having a bunch of it in our inventory, so we might as well just dump it in the chest. Okay, now we need to do the same upgrade for copper here, because we're still feeding it by hand. And we need a build. Honestly, this works great. It's probably too much for copper, because we only have the 2, but why not just build the whole thing? Because we know it works, and it's exactly this, so why not do that? And it's going to need to go somewhere, and away from the central patch of ores makes the most sense. And we also would like to position it if possible so every miner can go, although it will not take very long for them to drain the patch. Wow, there's only one position where all the miners go, which means it's not going to take very long for them to mine out. But it is what it is, at least it fits. And now we can just come up here and grab stuff out of these chests. And if we really want to, we can grab the ash out too, but it doesn't matter. Wow, this one only has access to 47 ore. And this one is only going to have 148. So this is not going to run at full speed for very long, but that's fine. This is a small copper patch, so it never was going to run at full speed. And definitely the handcrafting is really starting to slow us down here. It's funny how it really doesn't take that long, even if we have a lot of resources. That now our biggest factor of annoyance is actually handcrafting things. And certainly making a minibus is on our priority list, but to do a bus, we kind of need to automate the production of the resources first. And we're going to need this belt to go somewhere. How about just this way? It's going to keep going that way, but no need to make everything look perfect. I do want it to be straight, but it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect here. Looks like we have just barely enough to do this. At least to get it minimally started. Here you go. We definitely need some bricks too to start improving our walking speed, because walking on this ice is getting a little old. And there it is. It's empty already. And that's fine, we'll leave it the way it is. And if it starts seeming to be slow, well, then we'll add more miners in there and make some spaghetti. But you see the patch is already on the list because I guess it's 24 hours away from being emptied, so that's the warning threshold. And also, that one is empty. Well, we'll be finding ourselves with extra coal in our inventory and other things we might want to burn. So we need a chest for this, and it's kind of hard to know which side to put the stuff on because we don't have splitters, so right now it looks like it's prioritizing the top belt. So let's try to take advantage of that. Well, we don't really need to have copper ore or iron ore in our inventory anymore because we're not going to be moving it around by hand. And now this build is a little oversized, but that's fine. That's kind of what I was warning about, that you seem to go through copper really fast, so it's a little bad that this is a small patch to begin with, but we have to deal with what we have. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we are going to set up a mini bus so we can greatly reduce the amount of time we're spending handcrafting. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.